Hi, I'm Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, premier pelvic health expert and women's wellness warrior. I hope you've been enjoying Some of Your Parts podcast, where you discover that you're greater than the sum of your parts. I have a surplus of interviews that I just need to get out to you. So, we're going to do a series of Some of Your Parts Raw, where just minimal editing. So, no introduction, no outro, just the straight interview so you guys can get the information in a timely manner. If you're enjoying this podcast, please make sure you subscribe, follow, like, visit us on our YouTube channel and like and subscribe, and follow me also on Instagram and Facebook. And I hope you enjoy this next episode of Some of Your Parts podcast. On today's show, we'll be interviewing Amy Stark of Stark Transformation. She's an author, speaker, and teacher about personal transformation and host of the Ophelia podcast. For over a decade, Amy has been teaching others how to master their life and energy with the most cutting-edge tools and techniques. Amy has a degree in psychology, a master's in education, is an LMT and biohacker at heart. She is a trained Reiki master, reconnective healer, EFT practitioner, and is known around the world for helping people to create happier and healthier lives full of joy and purpose. I'd like to welcome Amy Stark. Thank you, Amy, for being with us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So I know Amy through a health and wellness group that we're part of, and I can't even explain everything that Amy does, but Amy, tell my listeners, what exactly do you do? Because it's amazing, but explain the proper terminology. And then I want you to tell us your story about how you got into it.
Sure. So what I do with people is to show them that their programming or trauma is what is getting in the way of them being able to attain the things that they want. So whether that's health or a new job or a different body type, like getting thinner or something like that. That really, when we look at the body energetically, because that's what I do, is I can see the energy that the person has within their body. I help them to rewrite and release the energy that's keeping them stuck. So like, a lot of people, they think that they are reluctant, I should say, or they resist certain things that they want to change. They're like, oh, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about the fact that I need to lose weight. But yet they want to be thinner. So it's like, how is that supposed to happen? Like they have to take a look at it and they have to own it, and then they can transform it. So I definitely help people to recognize, okay, this is what's there. This is what we're working with. And that's okay. Like, it's all okay that it's there. But like, let's work on releasing any of that resistance. Like, why do you have resistance to that? Like, what does it mean for you to be a person who has that? Because you do have it. So like, it's like not really that loving to say, oh, but I don't like that about me. It is you, own it, love it, and then transform it. By loving it and accepting it, you do transform it. It's just natural. So I do the energy component of that. Like I talk to people, but I also help them move out the energy.
That's amazing. But you started off as a teacher.
Yes. So I used to teach science, which is crazy that I'm even in this field, dealing with this component of energy that's within the body. Because to be honest, like first of all, I didn't believe in it, let alone did I even hear about the body being energetic. So as a science teacher, I had this like left brain mentality. I had to have research, and things like that. But I got to a point when I was a teacher, because I was working in one of the most dangerous schools in New York City, that I got so stressed out that I had to leave my job. And I had gotten a master's degree for it. I had like invested time as a teacher, and that's a lot to give up when you're working up the ladder. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm sick. I'm a shell of myself. Like, I hate what I'm doing every day. It feels futile. Like I'm not reaching the kids in the way that I want to because of the system. So I took a step back, and then I started meditating based on a dare of a friend, which she didn't really call it a dare, but I received it as that, because I was like, how am I supposed to sit with myself, for 15 minutes? Like the thought of like listening to what was going on in my head for 15 minutes in a quiet room was like, uh-oh, like what's going to come up? But I realized that like I should be able to do that. Like any human being should be able to sit and listen to themselves. So I did. And sure enough, I loved it. And little by little, I increased that time that I spent, and these gifts opened up that I wasn't expecting. And then when they opened up, I had to understand them. So like, I didn't think I was crazy or like losing my mind or something. So I went and I dove back into the science, and I was like, this has been here the whole time. Like, I didn't know. Nobody's been talking about the fact that we're energetic, and like that you can pick up energy from other people and think that it's yours. And like, I'll give you an example. So one day I was meditating, and I was thinking of my twin sister, and all of a sudden my eyes started burning, and I was like, that's really weird. Kind of like before we started our session, before we started talking, like my neck started hurting, and I was like, I wonder if that's her neck, because my neck wasn't bothering me. And the same thing happened with my twin sister. I was sitting there meditating, and then all of a sudden, my eyes started burning, and then I opened up my eyes and they were fine. I closed them, they were burning, and I opened them, and I was like, man, what is going on? Who was the last person, or what was the last thing I thought about? And it was my twin sister. So I called her and I said, Sarah, what's going on? Is there anything wrong with your eyes? Because my eyes are burning. And she's like, oh, did mom tell you I have a double pink eye infection? I was like, what? I know. I mean, you have to understand, like, I'm like sitting there being this, like, almost I felt like somebody was doing an experiment on me, like all of a sudden I was the experiment. And so I was like, all right, this is really weird. Maybe it's twin tuition. And then the next day I'm meditating, and all of a sudden my mouth starts hurting and my tooth. I'm like, who or what was the last thing I was thinking about? And it was my dad. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, what's going on with dad? Like, is he okay? And she was like, well, he bit down on a walnut last night and broke his tooth, and he's at the dentist.
Oh
And I
my
was
God.
like, what is going on? And then I was like, how do I make it stop? Right. Like, I was like, this is crazy. My eyes are burning, my mouth's hurting. What's next? So I realized I had to get some help. Like, I had to start joining some groups and like be like, okay, so this is the thing that happens to me. Like, what do I do? Because nobody was teaching me, and I was trying to find books. And Bruce Lipton was great for me learning about the science of like maybe why it was happening, but nobody was really telling me how to stop it or how to use it as a superpower. And so over time, I've learned to be able to use it as a superpower and recognize, what is it that I'm feeling? Like, I'm so clear and so much in alignment that like when something happens, like immediately when my neck started hurting, I was like, my neck wasn't hurting just a few minutes ago. It's got to be, what's going on with you? And I had the guts to ask you, to be like, what's going on? And you even said, I'm working on some things. And I was like, yep, that makes a lot of sense, and then I can clear that. I can get it out of my space so that I'm not in pain anymore. Which is a technique that, I teach my clients and students.
That's amazing. Cause you're right. But right before we started talking, when you did that, and I was like, that is so strange. I mean, my neck was hurting me. So, which actually it's not right now. That is just so amazing.
Because I cleared it. Remember, you saw me yawning, right?
Yeah.
Before I do a session or before I do any interview, I clear the room, I clear my energy, and then I connect with you and your higher self. And I connect with your energy. And because of that, I connect, I guess, really strongly. And I was like, I'm like, oh no, I'm getting this headache like this. My neck, is kind of tweaking out. And I could even tell you exactly where it is,
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And sure enough, like that, you validated it, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to clear my energy. So I did. And I got rid of it.
So it's funny, like how the universe works. And this is Amy's part of this group that I'm in. And I knew about Amy, but I hadn't met her until last summer. And I kind of chalk it up to, it was my time to learn about energy, because it started off where I got on my plane flight out to California, and it was a 5-hour flight, and I randomly just downloaded a book from Dr. Joe Dispenza. Never heard of him before, downloaded this book. It's all about this energy stuff. And then I get there, and one of the first people I run into was you. And then we ended up talking about this, and I'm like, all right, there are weird things going on. And then it was just that whole week we were at this conference. It was like every single person I ran into was talking about energy work. And you even had a little, you had a session that you invited people to, and we did a bunch of things. We did some tapping. What is that thing when we would throw the energy? And
Right. So that's really cool. So what we did, the
because that
exercise.
blew my mind.
Yeah, right. I mean, it does. It blows anybody's mind because basically what I was doing was I was having you say where you wanted to throw your energy, right? So, like, as far as you wanted to go between two people. And it basically became your barrier. So, like, don't go beyond this point. That was what we were saying. And with each person, we tested it. Like, we had them close their eyes and walk slowly. So they were paying attention, to the energy in the field, and they would walk and they would immediately come to that point where they could feel like it was almost like there was a wall there, but there was nothing there. And for me, because I'm so highly sensitive, when I approach that wall, I actually start to get nauseous. I start to get like visceral reactions. Like, it starts to get like loud in my ears, but like there's no noise. Like, it's amazing how strong of intention you can set out there, of protection for yourself. And that's what I was trying to show you, is like, this is what your energy is capable of doing. It's capable of like pushing somebody back and keeping you safe. So that was the exercise. That was really cool. And I taught you guys EFT.
Yeah, explain to us about that.
So EFT is emotional freedom technique, and it's a energy-based protocol that I came across when I was trying to put like the science and everything together. And I do have a psychology degree, which is also cool because this is an energy psychology tool. They've researched it within energy psychology, and it it helps people to release the trauma that is within their body, but also to reprogram. So, like, if you have something that you're afraid of, your brain and body are going to do all kinds of things, right? And so, the EFT is something that you can do to stop that signal. So, like, if you're having anxiety about something, you can use EFT to stop the brain and body from reacting. So it takes a little bit of time, but you tap on the body, and it's a very rhythmic kind of thing. It's very loving because you're touching your body. I believe it gets you into your body so that you're not like checked out and not paying attention. So like you're kind of like focused. I believe that also it expands our energy field when we start doing this tapping. So for me, it's like the perfect protocol for releasing trauma, because trauma is stuck energy in the body, and large and small. So sometimes we have these little things that happen, and we need to release them because they're going to create this bigger trauma of like not getting the job that we want and like living with that for the rest of our lives, right? So we want to go back and we want to release that stuff. So when we do tapping, we tap on the points that are one's here, and then there's one here and here and here and here and here and then here.
Maybe because for the podcast listeners, I'll have you explain it
right.
too. Yeah, because for the video people, will see it. But
okay, yeah, I forgot about that. So there's different points around the body, and there's something that we say. So we say, even though I'm going through this thing, whatever it may be, I deeply love and accept myself. And the combination of the love and accept is really key for me, in terms of what I've seen people and how they can transform. Because if you accept where you're at, then you can move forward. You wouldn't try to go to a new location and type in on a GPS the new location, but not put in where you're at. You have to acknowledge where you're at, which is the acceptance part, and then you can go to the new location.
That's a great explanation.
Yeah. So and so it's missing in so much. That's why, like, extreme ownership of where you're at, like, in order to change it. Like, it's okay that you're there. It's not that you're going to stay there. It's not that you have to love the fact that you're there, but you have to love yourself that you like become that, and it's made you who you are. And then the next part is like, obviously, love and accept. So the combination of the two is very healing, and it releases and it relaxes the body. And really, truly, the best part of all this is it turns off the fight or flight. So that's where the body's able to heal. So like people who have these triggers, I'm not good enough, or, they're in a dangerous relationship or something like that, their fight or flight is always on. This is a way to turn off that fight or flight to get you to be able to see your options. Because when our fight or flight is on, we're back here. We're not thinking about the options. We feel like a victim, like we're trying to just survive, whether that's run, freeze, or fight. We're not thinking about, with our logical brain, I could be doing this, that, and the other thing to get to where I want to be. So it shifts the reticular activating system to see those opportunities.
And how often do you tell people to try to do that therapy?
Well, okay, so the research says that if you do an hour of tapping, it's going to turn on 72 genes for healing, and it will lower cortisol levels by 24%. So it's up to you, and the more
Yeah.
you tap, the more that you get good at it, and the more that it sends a response to your body that this is what we're doing and this is what usually happens. So, like for me, I've done over 1,000 EFT sessions. So when I say I love and accept myself about something, like I already start moving the energy out. So I don't necessarily have to do an entire session. And I think your body becomes smart, or like it's like a muscle that you're flexing, like that you've been working out for a really long time. It's just like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. And let's go of it.
I think it's great too for kids. And you've been teaching your son this. And
Yeah. I
that's
teach my son, and I'm getting into the school system because I don't know about you, but I hated taking tests when I was growing up. And, with the testing being so pervasive in the academic community, you're really not going to avoid it. And I would know what I was talking about when I would go in and take those tests. I'd be prepared for it, but it was like my
oh yeah.
brains like fell out
Yeah.
before I got there. And I'm like, what?
I used to always say, if you asked me my name and like put me on the spot and asked me my name, I would not be able to say it.
Because our brain is back here. It's not our fault. And nobody tells us that there's not something wrong with us. It's just something biological happens. Like we go back here and your brain's like, why would I want to take a math test right now? Like, I think I'm going to die, like this is
Yeah.
not something that I'm supposed to be doing, let alone sitting quietly in a chair, So I teach them about tapping, so that they can get the test anxiety down or lower. And I help kids to come out so they feel comfortable with who they are, and be able to tell other people who they trust, like, how they're feeling, and many other things. I mean, claustrophobia, or I mean, it's weird what kids are fearful of these days. I don't think it's the same kind of stuff we were fearful of at the time.
I can't remember the exact wording, and I'm just, if I thought about it, I would have looked it up before we talked. But you had a post not too long ago that I thought was really, really important about using these techniques with everything that's going on with kids nowadays, with bullying and with like school just violence.
Right, because it's not like that these kids are innately wrong. At least I don't believe that. Like, there aren't bad humans. I think most people are good. I think it's the trauma that's picking up the guns and going into these schools. Like, I think it's the unresolved trauma, I should say. And there's actually a link between childhood trauma and chronic illness, mental illness, and addiction later in life. And if we
Yeah.
can give the kids the tool when they're young, then they're able to move out the energy that would cause them to think, certain things about themselves, and get angry and frustrated, and maybe do something that they wouldn't normally have done if they had not had that trauma stored up.
I think that's a great tool. It's nice. I'm pretty happy with our school system here because we have one of the new school counselor has created a Zen room, and they're taking it into the other schools. So they're trying to, kind of they were trying to teach the kids about meditation and bringing a lot of these things actually into the school. And mindfulness has been very big. So I don't know if that's happening everywhere, but at least in our school system, it's been going very well. So that's one of the things I'm like, I got to figure out how to get you out here.
Well, I'm out there all the time. That's where I grew up. So I do plan to get this out into the schools. And it's so great that they're working on meditation right now. I'm developing different programs for the younger kids, then the middle school kids, and then the high school kids, because with each group, you have to approach them differently, or at least I believe they're looking for something different. I was just working with the sixth graders, and believe it or not, they really love the science behind it. They loved learning about how the cell is, where the energy is, how the cell is sensing the energy of the environment. And that's what's creating this like cascading effect. When you have a thought, it just sends a signal. And they were just like, wow, that is so cool. Like, and then we started talking about the EFT, and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't have to deal with this anxiety that I have, this debilitating anxiety. And with the older kids, obviously they are applying to schools and they have different pressures and things like that than the little kids. I I have a superhero program that I'm developing for the little ones.
I like that. I like the superhero picture you posted of your son doing
Yeah.
the tapping. I think that was amazing.
Yeah. I was like, hey, can you put a superhero costume on and can I take some pictures of you doing the tapping points? And he was like, all right.
But you know what? Actually, I'm going to have you go into that, explaining like on a cellular level how does this work? Because I know a lot of people are going to like look at this and be like, this is kind of woo woo and a little crazy, but that there is actual biologic basis in this, and that's what I found fascinating too.
Sure. So, like I was saying, Bruce Lipton, he discovered that the nucleus was not the brain of the cell. That, like, when he pulled out the nucleus, it was the cell membrane that was actually the brain of the cell, or was sensing the environment, was deciding what was meant for it. And so, what he did was he took the nucleus out, and then he saw that the cell gravitated towards things that were good for it and away from things that were bad for it. And so he was like, okay, so then there's this thing on the outside that's sensing the environment. And how many trillion cells do you have? Like 37 trillion. They're all communicating through energy. And so, like, that is how we are energetic beings. And like, we use that energy to like do an EKG or an EEG. We get information from it. And the only woo woo part is like that I'm able to like read that energy. Like, I'm able to see that energy. I'm able to feel that energy. And it's because I've cultivated that skill. I think that probably most people could do what I do, and probably most people are experiencing what I'm experiencing. I've just done so much meditation that I'm able to slow down the tape and look at it. Like I was just telling somebody, I'm like, it's going at the speed of light. If you really look at it, your DNA is sending out these light photons, and it has information in it, and it's going at the speed of light. And somehow I'm able to read that, slow it down, and look at it and say, okay, that's what's going on there. Let's release that. That's not congruent with who you are. I mean, we could go down the woo, side very deeply, but for anybody else who's listening, that was really wondering about the science part of it. I mean, we have mitochondria that we now know stores this survival information, and it's not sophisticated. So it's not like, it can like, figure out a whole scene of like, this is why this is dangerous. It basically just pairs two things together. We almost died here, or we got an email and we panicked. So like, that means that it's not safe. Like it's not really very concrete and a good system at all. So I help people to release that trauma, like to relax, so that their body isn't thinking that when they get an email or a text, or, somebody asks them to do a presentation or whatever it may be, like that they're not gonna die. Like it's okay. They will survive that thing. And they want to, they want to survive. They want to be able to get back to those people and think clearly and not be back here. So basically that's the science, is that our whole body's communicating through energy, and it can get interrupted by chemicals. So toxins, emotional components. So like with each emotion, there's a chemical reaction that happens in the body that can get in the way, or physical trauma. And all that I do is I can go through and I can move that out energetically. I can just feel what needs to happen.
And these are all things that people can learn.
Sure. I think that, some people, I once heard a lady who was an energy healer, and like, I really respected her, say something. And I was like, now I'm a little bit not happy with you, because she was like, oh, you have to go to a mountain and spend like 20 days sitting and meditating. I'm like, no, like I was working in New York City and I was drinking coffee, and I just was like, this is cool. This feels good. And I'm going to keep going with it. Like I don't really feel that I'm all that special. I feel that my brain has a nice combination of like left and right and the good communication. There's like the corpus callosum or something like that, I think, is in the middle, and the communication is great. Like that's why it's easier for me. I've developed and I've thickened that. Like with meditation, you thicken that. So I think that because I put in the dedication, yes, but I didn't have to. I have never gone on a retreat for like any length of time, no less 20 days on a mountain, like sitting in, like a meditative state.
I know. Now, I was actually talking to somebody the other day on the podcast about meditation in general, and I told her, I was like, oh, I'm not doing it right, because I had this image of like having to sit with my legs crossed and like, like in some kind of like yogi position, and like, and it was brought up like, no, just sitting quietly and just being with yourself and whatever comes to mind. I was like, oh, all right, well, I can do that.
Right. And that's what I thought. I thought you had to do all that too when I first started. And it turned out that I got this CD. I was like, I must need a CD that this was back in the day when there were CDs.
Yeah.
I must need a CD that's going to have some like calming music on it. So I did start with music. And there was one particular part of the song where there were waves going in and out. And I would breathe with the waves. And that's when I would feel the most transformation or the most information coming in. So I would stick with that and I put it on repeat. Like, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I'll keep going with this. But I never really, attended any workshops other than just to learn about energy healing and things like that. And I think that when you sit with yourself, you realize how boring you are. You realize like these are the same thoughts day in, day out. And eventually you think, all right, I'm going to do something about that. Like I'm going to start to change that tape that I have to hear every single day because I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear that I have to go to the grocery store. You'd be like, I would hear like, I need to get eggs and blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, oh my God, Amy, this is not what we're doing. And I'd be like, I could have actually have physically, or I should say with my mind, imagine like taking that out and setting it aside and then recentering. So I got really good at doing that, of being distracted and then separating it out, being distracted, separating it out, and just getting focused each time. And that's what I mean when I realized that I could like stop the tape and be like, oh, what was that? Okay, that's what that is. And then look at it and have the bravery to be like, wow, this is what I'm telling myself. This is horrible. Like I need to start cleaning up my act. Did you know that 70% of people speak negatively to themselves, and 70% of people think that if they're saying positive things to themselves?
That's impressive.
Yeah.
It's high with the negative
Yeah.
thoughts.
Well,
And
to a degree, I was kind of happy to read that because I was like, I'm a positive person. I can't believe I just, I've been having all these negative thoughts. Like, where are they coming from? And that's where I got really curious. And down the line, I've now realized that I could, alter those thoughts really quickly through EFT.
and it's amazing how much that's connected, like our thoughts with what's going on in our body, and that we can cause harm to our bodies with negative thoughts, but that we can like actually improve our health through positive thoughts.
Right. Are you familiar with the Emoto studies?
No.
Okay, so they're the studies around water. So they were talking to water in various different ways, and they've done this experiment and with rice and other things. But essentially, we're mostly made up of water. Or we're made up of a lot of water. And if we're talking to the water, like in the Emoto studies, with love and then hate and then there was a control and then there was something else. The water, when they put it under the microscope, when there was love, it was like perfectly formed and it was so beautiful to look at. With the hate, it was all like mangled and broken and didn't look right. And then with the control, it was, just looked like regular water, nothing that special, but not horrible. So if we're having those thoughts and we're sending those signals through energy through this body, our water is going to change within our body, and it's going to, not be great if we're having negative thoughts.
That's amazing. And I know, like, I've been reading a lot of like Bruce Lipton and the Joe Dispenza, and that how we can even affect our DNA, which that, yes, coming from traditional medicine, prior to reading those books, because now I feel like I've now been transformed after reading them, but prior to, like, your DNA was your DNA, and like, this is what you're stuck with. And I think that this is really important because of all these things that you can do with the 23andMe. I find so many people, they're getting these DNA tests and they're like, their attitudes may be like, oh, I'm screwed. I have this medical condition. I'm going to get that condition, but not necessarily.
Yeah. So I really am tempted to sequence my genes again. I did 23andMe probably like 5 years ago. And since then, I instituted specific DNA upgrades. Like I did it through energy healing. And I'm really wondering what has shifted and what has changed, because I'll tell you, so I also worked with clients for, many years, and I started doing this DNA upgrade. And what's interesting about it is that so I would do EFT and then we'd get down to a 3. So when you do EFT, you take a scale, and usually if you're working on, it's like a 9 or a 10, it bothers you. Okay. And you're working down And when it would get to a 3 and it wouldn't release, it had to do with DNA. It had to do with what you inherited from your parents or your ancestors. And when I intuitively look at it, like, how is this connected? I would get information, and then I would say, okay, let's say this specific phrase, and we're going to update the DNA. And would you know that it would go right down to 0? The person would expand and shift, and they would have this, huge aha moment where, like, all their energy, like, for their, like, higher self would come in and fill their body, and they could not believe that they once thought that thing at a 10 or a 9, like, that they were unworthy of that job, or that whatever it may have been. It was because it had to do with that ancestral information. It was in the way of them really owning who they really are. It's really fascinating and amazing to watch.
You know,
Over and over and over again, and do it with myself.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm going to ask you about, because this is stuff I don't exactly understand, but I'm fascinated with it. So I'm going to have you explain about the ancestral traumas, and that how trauma can pass from, like, through the womb and to the offspring.
Right. So think about it. If you're an energetic being and you're a baby that's growing in a mom, you're going to be exposed to all her energy and information for 9 to 10 months, right? So there's imprinting that happens there. There's also the DNA that, obviously you're inheriting from your mom and your dad. Actually, most of the energy that you get is actually from your mom. The tail of the sperm falls off, and that had a lot of the energy and information. The kid obviously gets the DNA, but anyway, there's stuff going on there, or the kid gets most of the mitochondria from the mom. And so I've worked with, I could tell you some crazy stories, but, like, let's see, which one should I tell you about? So it's kind of interesting. The Holocaust comes up quite a bit with clients. So this was an odd one that I just recently worked with somebody about. Sometimes my friends will have problems, and I'll step in and help them to reprogram so that they can, start to heal in that way. And because it is kind of easy for me to connect the dots and just say, this is what it is. So I said to him, I'm like, okay, this looks like it's related to the Holocaust. Was your family in the Holocaust? Yes. It looks like it's, coming from your mom. What's going on? What happened to your mom? My mom was in the Holocaust. I was like, okay. Then what happened? Oh, so I said, I don't understand. I'm getting the feeling that she survived fine the Holocaust. Like, what is the holdup? Like, why is this an issue? Like, this doesn't make sense. And he was like, because they didn't leave when everyone else was leaving. They stayed and endured, like, the aftermath of being, a survivor of the Holocaust. And so they regretted their decision to stay. And that was what was passed on. And so their intuition was telling them to leave, but they stayed. And so this man had trouble trusting his intuition because of that life-threatening circumstances. And it's hard to imagine that those two would be connected and trusting your intuition. But as soon as we released that, he had so much of an aha moment that he was able to be like, I know exactly what to do with my company now. I know exactly which direction we're going in. I've been trying to figure this out for a while. Like, and now I know that it had to do with me not trusting my intuition, because there were other things that we were working on that had to do with intuition and stuff like that. And it can be that simple, that, like, just that shift, the reconnecting of the DNA in that way.
Wow. That's really amazing.
Yeah. And here's a cool one also. Do we have time?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got time. We got a lot more time.
Okay. So there's this woman that I was working with, and I love her so much. She's a nurse, and she's a twin, and she hated change. And so I worked with her for a while, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, we're ready to work on your not liking change. And I looked at the energy, and I was like, I'm getting it right from conception, like right at the beginning of conception. This is the problem. So I start reading the energy and looking at it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you came down the fallopian tube and then saw your twin sister and was like, nobody told me about this, that I was coming in with somebody else. And it threw her, like it shocked her. And she was like, this, obviously it was a change of mentality, obviously, as even though she was just an egg, and, it's hard to imagine that that there's a spirit in there and it has a mission and all that kind of stuff. But it does, and from my perspective and what I've seen. And so she basically saw the other egg and was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing this with somebody else," and wanted. I felt the energy of like, I want to go back. Like this wasn't the circumstances in which I want. I want to go back. And so we started tapping on it. We started moving the energy. She does love her twin sister, and so it wasn't about that. And as soon as we move that energy, she's like, I can't begin to tell you how life changing that was. I love change now. I'm totally fine with it. I embrace it. In fact, it's fun. It's what makes the world go round. Like, and this was all in her. And she was resisting so much prior to that because everything's changing. Like you have to be able to go with the flow. And so that one thing, that's where it came from. That like, I call them like the seed, and we just rip it out from where it began and give you the orientation to the world that you really always wanted to have. Like it was a shock, yes.
Yeah.
And but it wasn't helpful for her to have that for the rest of her life. Like it was too, constricting, literally, of her energetic body.
That is absolutely amazing. And I think for some people it can be a little bit tough to understand, but if we think about like our bodies, I mean, all our bodies are just chemical processes and energy. And that's basically what it is. And
Right.
and if you get down on even chemicals, if you get down to the basis of chemicals are like made out of atoms, which are made out of, you know, whatever subparticles. I don't even know what they say now because I know what I learned in college and high school is like ancient compared to what they know now. But that really at its core, it's just energy vibrating at different frequencies.
Yeah, which is how I was able to. So this woman, I actually have never met her before, and I worked with her at a distance. She's somewhere else in the country, and the way that I'm able to actually work with her, or even like how I tuned into you and your neck pain,
Yeah, and we're
is
on completely different coasts.
yeah, completely different. And it's because of the quantum field. It's because I know how to connect with the quantum field, and the quantum field, there's no distance between us. So it's called entanglement. Where they assign one atom in, like, let's say New Jersey to like vibrate like this, and the one that they've paired with it, let's say in Australia, will vibrate at the same time and the same way because of the quantum field, because of the entanglement. There is that communication, and that's how I'm able to work with my clients. It's so bizarre to me that I haven't met most of my clients in person. Like the times when I do, it's a little awkward because I'm like, I know so much about you. And then like I worked through so much with you. Like it's almost like it's so weird to know so much about somebody and then meet them for the first time. But it winds up being wonderful, of course. And lots of hugs and sometimes tears because the transformation has been so great, and yet it didn't need to be right in front of each other.
I was starting to think about this too, like other aspects of how getting in tune with your energy not only will help you as a person transform and also help your um your health. But I was thinking, I have a friend who's kind of going through like a divorce right now, and I was just thinking about her, and I'm like, you know what? If we could be in tune to our energies when we're meeting our partners, like maybe that would be a lot more telling, and maybe we wouldn't have this kind of divorce rate, or I don't know. I'm just kind of brainstorming out loud here about that.
Well, it's interesting you say that because when I work with clients, that's one of the things that I will say to them is like, listen, you're gonna become a different person, and if your partner isn't on the same path of like trying to better themselves, like you're gonna be incompatible at some point because you're gonna release those traumas, those limiting beliefs, those feelings that you once had where you were at one vibration and they were at the other, and that's why you were a match. But if you all of a sudden are up here and they're like, I can't hear you, I don't understand what's going on, that's when you're going to see that divorce, because somebody evolved and the other person didn't. And that's why, honestly, like I do a lot of evolving. I do a lot of looking at the things that are holding me back. And if my partner didn't do that, we would definitely have separated. It just has to happen, and of course, like, thankfully I'm able to be like, all right, let me help you with that thing that you're struggling with, because I don't want her to have to stay in it too long. And then I also don't want to have to watch her stay in it too long.
Sure. Oh yeah.
I was also thinking, I don't know. Sometimes this stuff is so like it feels like it's a whole new world for me, and it's like in some ways I want to know more, but it's in some ways it's like wow, it gets a little overwhelming. Where do people like learn more about this?
Well, so I have a course. That's interesting you say that because it is overwhelming. And so I developed a course for people who are just getting into this and need to be led through this, like how I was led, but except for, it's in a 2.5 hour, video series that, says like, okay, this is what we're talking about. I do it a lot more slowly. And I learned things. I was such at a elementary level with this that I've just done this for 14 years that now it all makes sense and I get it and it's so fluid and that's why I'm talking about it. But like if you asked me even 5 years ago like certain questions, I'd be like, I really don't have the answer for that. I don't know why I can do this, that, and the other thing or whatever. And so in the course, I start out, I talk about the quantum field and I talk about how we're energy beings and how to do EFT exactly and why we do it EFT and what the science is behind that and how to clear your energy and why it works scientifically. Like there's a lot in the course, but I just do it. It's called Your Energy, and it's just supposed to be a first level course. It's not like you're going to be able to go out and do energy healing or even do readings or anything like that for people. It's
You
just
know,
a good foundation.
we hear a lot, and you were saying that you can physically see the energy around people. And like my only interpretation of that, because I can't, is like I've seen pictures where like what I'm assuming is like an aura. Like I'm assuming it's like looks like a silhouette of a body, and then there's colors and stuff. I don't know if that's the wrong interpretation. Could you explain like what that is,
Sure.
or how did it like when it first happened to you? Were you like what?
Well, yeah. So I remember being in what was it? I guess sophomore year of college, and we were out up on a mountain. And if I was walking up the mountain, and a car or a person would walk by, let's say it was a person was walking by in front of me, and the sky was behind them. It looked like they were Marge Simpson, like they had the Marge Simpson hair.
Yeah.
And I would tell people, I'd be like, do you see that by any chance? Like, because that's really weird. So then I started calling it the Marge Simpson. And then I would see cars go by, and then there would be all this energy around the car. And it would just be this grayish energy, which was like really uncool. Like yours, like,
Yeah.
whatever, it's not exciting.
Yeah, I'm like picturing like rainbow colors.
Yeah, I wish it was, but it was very, very simple. It was very black and white. And so I then started, when I started meditating, I started seeing the dots on people, and I was like, what are these dots? Like, I knew nothing about Eastern medicine. I was very sick growing up, and I was all in the Western medicine field, like passed around by doctors. I knew that, like I was familiar with that. When I saw the dots, I said to a friend of mine, I'm like, what are these dots? Like she grabbed a book and she's like, these dots? And I was like, acupuncture? I'm like, those are the, the acupuncture points in meridian? And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I started researching that and like trying to figure out, why do I see those? And, my journey now, it sounds very complete, but it was very much, I just stayed curious. Like, why is it that I can feel pain in other people? Like, how is that helpful? Like, why do I see dots? Why do I see the Marge Simpson? Like, why do I know things that are going to happen in the future, in detail? Like, how is that possible? And how does it roll out like that? Like, how do I know how somebody is feeling? There was a business deal that I was helping somebody through, and I was like, I knew this guy was not going to go below a certain number. And I was like, there's an emotional component to this, and he just won't do it. And he wouldn't. And so I said, you can offer whatever you want, but he's not going below that. And then he eventually at signing said, this is why I owe this amount. I'm losing this amount because of my ex-wife, and this is what I'm willing to take. Bottom line. And that's that energy's all there. We're just not always paying attention to it.
That's absolutely amazing. Um, I'm gonna have to edit this part out, or maybe I should keep it because as we're talking and talking about energy, I've been developing this burning across my chest, and I like now I'm at the point where I'm uncomfortable, and I don't know why.
Right now you're getting that?
Yeah, it's going from my collarbone to my collarbone, like burning, itching, and I haven't.
That's interesting. Very likely, you're probably releasing by interacting with my field. This is an interesting thing. So if I take a plane ride and somebody's sitting right next to me, and they fall asleep, they'll start twitching in ways that I normally see when I'm doing an energy healing session. So you and I are paired. So basically, my energy is kicking out things within your energy field that have been needing or wanting to be released, and just haven't had that extra boost. So that's probably what's going on.
That's good. So I'm not going to edit that out then, because like I was sitting here and I was like, I'm getting distracted with my questions because of the burning that I feel across my upper chest.
So here. Why don't we do this? Take a deep breath in and out. So breath tells us that we're okay. Like when we take a deep breath in and out, we're telling our body that we're okay. So go ahead and take another deep breath in and out. And I want you to imagine that burning sensation for the area that it's on your skin, actually just peeling off like a layer. Did I lose you? Are you
No,
frozen? Oh, okay.
I'm still here.
Okay, you're doing the work. That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Whew.
Yeah.
I'll give you the information later about what I could see about that. But I won't disclose that now. But take another deep breath in and out, because it's definitely coming off. It's still on the right shoulder side.
That is so weird. How can you know that?
Because I can see it and feel it.
That is crazy.
I think you're also getting a healing from that neck area that we were talking about before. So this is all connected. So take another deep breath in and out. Actually, if you could just pump your hand in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and then like shake it if you can. That'll help get rid of some of it. Ooh, it's almost gone. The pain went down, right, significantly right there.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, but there's still a 3. So this is where when I see a 3, I know that it's intergenerational. So I can't believe we're doing this right now on air. This is crazy. Okay, so what I'm actually seeing is your grandfather, and so I'm going to take a look at why I'm seeing that. Okay. Ooh, let's see. I don't want to tell you over air.
Why not? You got to hear some of my other podcasts of things I've been admitting. My whole life is now like an open book.
Okay, so basically what I'm seeing is your grandfather, and I want to say it's from your dad's side, and what I'm seeing is that it has to do with a business deal. So it was interesting that now that I'm getting that information, and we go back to when you started admitting that this was happening, we were talking about a business deal. So let me take a look at the energy around that business deal and why you'd be still holding that.
Okay.
Because this is related to money. I saw money first, and then I saw a business deal, and then I saw your grandfather. So take a deep breath in and out. And you know what? We don't actually have to know the whole story. What we can do is we can just update it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you update it without us saying the words, because I don't want your audience to know the words, because I don't want people just haphazardly updating stuff without being in the right state. Okay. So take a deep breath in and out. Take another deep breath in and out. Ooh. Good. Wow. Whew. Take another deep breath in and out. One more time. Okay, there's something else I have to update, so hang on. Ooh, okay. Oh, deep breath in and out. Deep breath in and out. Ugh. When I make those sounds, it's not that you're disgusting, it's that the energy isn't yours, and so it feels icky. So that's why I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
So take another deep breath in and out. Oh, there we go. Whew. Okay. Another huge deep breath in and out. All the information is coming in, all your truth is coming in and filling your body. Deep breath in and out. You're getting a reorientation to the world. There's like basically what I see is like code coming in. So it's like little packets of energy that are filling in and rewriting. And it's almost like you code digital and then you come back. That's the best way I can explain it. Take another deep breath in and out. There's more in there, but the pain seems to be a lot less. And then, I think what we would need to deal with was the itching. How are you doing?
Yeah, much better. Much better. That is really, really weird.
Yeah.
Because as I was talking to you, I was like, the burning was was coming up. And I'm like, that's really weird. And it got to a point.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm yawning. So this is a perfect example of how it's all unconscious energy that you were holding. And I'm helping you to release it by being in your field. It's like we're working together. It's like amplifying your field and helping you to release it.
I think, that was one of my problems too, as a physician, is am very empathetic to like other people. And I really, if like the way people would be in my office affected me. And it got to the point where it made it difficult sometimes to practice medicine, because I would come home and just be like exhausted from just other people, just the heaviness and the negativity and the.
Well, remember how I taught you how to clear your energy?
Yeah.
When I was working on your hand, I was helping things move out. Sorry, I'm still helping things move out. I felt the touching of other people, because you're a physician and you were touching and you were doing surgery. And so I was helping to release that in there. And it'd be interesting to go back and see what the itching is about. We could do that after, but that has some significance and importance and information for you.
That's amazing. Oh, I'm glad that happened while we were on air, because that's a good example of the stuff that you do. And that's just so incredible. I wanted to thank you again. Where can people find out more information about you and your course?
Sure. Stark Transformation. So STARK Transformation and .com. And then I'm also on Facebook at Stark Transformation and Instagram at Stark Transformation.
Great. Thank you, Amy, for being with us today.
It was a pleasure. It was so much fun.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Some of Your Parts podcast. Don't forget to like and follow us on social media. Look for Dr. Betsy Greenleaf or Dr. B Greenleaf or Greenleaf Health and Wellness or Some of Your Parts on social media. Thank you. Have a great day.